About 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, which gives support to life. The ocean, the seas, and rivers are of invaluable resources. Amongst these numerous benefits, most of the world's trade is carried out on the oceans and seas of the world. For sustainable shipping, it becomes imperative that we must be passionate about keeping our waters not only safe for navigation, but to also ensure it's free from pollution. The Earth of our waters impact on marine life and ultimately the world's ecosystem, as we depend on the oceans and seas of the world for food and our well-being. Developmental issues geared towards a vibrant maritime sector will be brought to you on Maritime Radar. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. Growing scientific evidence shows that the health of the oceans is at great risk and that marine ecosystems are already subject to extreme stress from pollution and overexploitation. The demand for ocean resources is expected to continue to grow, with the expectations of oceans as key drivers of human development and source of food, materials, and space. Reversing the ocean's further degradation and preserving their health is paramount due to the many irreplaceable benefits that they provide. As a result, there is an ongoing battle for their conservation and sustainable use. In this episode, our focus will be on the task of mitigating climate change and greenhouse emissions from ships and other sea vessels in line with improving the blue economy. Before we get further into today's lineup on the program, let's find out the latest in maritime news.
The maritime industry is historically male-dominated. In a view to reduce the gender gap in the maritime industry to achieve the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Gender Equality empowering women and girls, Ocean Ambassadors Foundation, a non-governmental organization, wants to open up the maritime sector for an early age to students in secondary schools. At its third annual event held in Lagos, with the theme Gender Balancing Bright Timing and Blue Economy, the Future of Nigeria, the founder, Violet Olaitan Williams, said it's been a bottom-up approach in maritime advocacy, social enterprise, with the aim to ensure maritime sustainability and success in exploring maritime opportunities.
In the first 3 years we started it, the girls were first. Although we're not shortchanging the men or the boys, because when we do this nationwide maritime quiz, we do 80% girls, 20% boys. And even at that, the girls are tops.
Guest speaker Ngozi Oyewole, who is also the vice chairperson, Commonwealth Business Women's Network Nigeria, spoke passionately on the need to train the girl child, which ultimately means training the society.
CBWN, all that matters to us is women leadership, women empowerment, encouraging the girl child. Today, it's such a pleasure to be here and to say that even in the maritime industry, the girls are underrepresented. Ocean Ambassadors Foundation has decided to put themselves as a platform to bring up young girls.
At the 4th Educators and Maritime Stakeholders Lecture and Awards held in Lagos, Ocean Ambassadors Foundation announced the Ultimate Ocean Ambassador, Omobolanle Sadela, an SS3 student of Dancehall High School, emerged the Ultimate Ocean Ambassador.
I plan to go into software engineering and it cuts across different sectors, right? So I see myself in future, near future, developing softwares to probably track the rate of decrease in ocean waste and things like that, things just to help the ocean. And I'm happy for participating in this quiz because it has widened my knowledge base. I know a lot of stuff about the maritime sector now.
Female seafarers were on ground to take them through a few tips on the blue economy. Other awardees at the event were Chimwe Ezenwa and Barrister Margaret Orakosi. maritime stakeholders who have contributed immensely to training and mentorship of youth in the industry. The port of Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire now has a second box terminal, which will increase the total number container handling capacity of the port from 1 million 20-foot equivalent units, or TEUs, to 2.5 million TEUs per year. The port will now be able to receive vessels of 16 meters of draft capable of carrying up to 14,000 TEUs as against 3,500 TEUs it currently has. The construction of the new terminal lasted 18 months and required an overall estimate of 596 billion CFAs, which is around 950 million US dollars. The new box terminal is a joint venture between France Badlore and APM Terminals, which is a part of the Danish shipping company AP Moller-Maersk. The Port of Abidjan has said since the commissioning of the new facilities, 3 major container carriers, MSC, Maersk, and CMA CGM, have decided to work with CC2. Some 15 empty containers at Keppel Terminal in Singapore fell from the wharf into the water due to strong winds during a quell. The Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore said the incident did not have an adverse effect on operations at the port, nor did it cause any injuries. The port authorities further noted that it has deployed 2 patrol crafts to monitor and cordon off the affected areas to facilitate recovery work by PSA corporations. The Port Operations Control Center has restricted vessel movement in the vicinity of Keppel Terminal until the containers are recovered.
If you're just joining us, this is Maritime Radar. Shipping is a sector which has traditionally been male-dominated. Today, we have women who have worked assiduously to shape Africa's shipping and blue economy. I spoke to Ambassador Nancy Karigithu, a world-renowned maritime expert and Kenya's ambassador and special envoy for shipping and blue economy, on how to build a sustainable ocean economy. Stay with us. Let's start this conversation looking at the World Maritime Day theme, which is New Technologies for Greener Shipping, the full sector decarbonization by 2050. What conversation do you think Africa should be having around this theme?
Thank you very much first of all, for having me on this show. Let me say that for Africa, it's a huge opportunity for economic growth, for development, because we need to look at Africa with the potential that it has. We're talking of decarbonizing shipping, greening the maritime sector, and this comes with new energy, new technology for both ships, for the infrastructure that supports ships, that is the ports. And we're then talking of how we can do better as Africa. I want to say that Africa has a lot of a lot of opportunities, because if we look at the technology, we may not have, but we have a lot of resources and a lot of opportunity for then contributing to this conversation. Our renewable energy potential has remained unmatched for a very long time, and therefore there is an opportunity to combine industrialization and decarbonized growth. 7 of the 10 sunniest countries in the world are in Africa, which is a tremendous asset for solar energy. We also see that Africa has 10% of the global potential for solar energy, but we haven't been able to attract or have the appetite, get the international financial institutions have the appetite to fund Africa because of
looking at these challenges you have mentioned here. Do you think this goal is ambitious for Africa?
I think, sorry?
2050 is ambitious for Africa, looking at the challenges you have enumerated here.
Now, what we are looking at and what we are seeing is that there is potential for collaboration, for technical transfer, As you had me say, initially during the World Maritime Day, we have MTCC Africa has opened up our eyes wide to what we can do. And within the first phase of MTCC Africa, we had some pilot projects. And out of those pilot projects, we have now the potential to generate bankable projects. If we have the technology, and what we've been asking is that, can we have in incubation of some of the technology that is available in the MTCC Africa, because that means, therefore, very quick technology transfer, capacity building for the region. And the other thing that I didn't mention earlier about the potential is the number of young people, energetic, innovative, and very, on the go people, and who can tap and take this and run with it. And that's one of the things that I think, one of the biggest advantages that we have as Africa.
The shipping industry close to 3% global greenhouse emissions, and cleaning it up represents an opportunity for Africa. Do you think, for developing countries, like Africa too? So do you think Africa is positioned for this opportunity?
Because of the resources that I have mentioned, the untapped resources, I think Africa is right in the middle of these opportunities and quite capable of tapping into it. Africa and many developing countries, because the resources that we have not been taken into account earlier. And this provides us with an opportunity for industrialization and decarbonized industrialization at the same time. So we don't have to go through the through the steps that the industrialized nations took, the mistakes they made, as we can leapfrog into that decarbonized, industrialized growth. And this presents a major opportunity, because when we talk of leave no one behind, this is what we are talking about. The new challenge that we are facing, the greening of the maritime sector, the decarbonization of shipping, presents one of the biggest challenges. And, for us to put our words in our mouths, what we are saying, leave no one behind. You cannot afford to have one part of the globe in the decarbonization greening sphere, but the other one isn't. And therefore, it's an opportunity to test what we've been talking about. Everyone must be on board. No point in having ships that are retrofitted and they are consuming the new energies. But when they come into a part of the region, because we must continue trading, international trade is in our fiber, economic fiber as the globe. We can't afford, because only 23% of the world can trade with neighbors. The rest of us must import and export through long distances. And therefore, when the ships come into the developing countries, they must have complementary infrastructure to be able to, not to contribute to climate change.
You have worked to develop and launch programs geared towards sustainable ocean and blue economy. How has that fared? How do we break the sleeping giant called blue economy?
The blue economy presents one of the biggest opportunities for socio-economic growth for all the populations. If you look at the kind of opportunities that are there, they're mind-boggling. We are told that the blue economy has, if you look at it properly, has 13 major sectors, big ones. Then you break it down, you come and get 15 sub-sectors, but also 87 different activities, meaning that there is something for everyone, beginning from the lowest levels going up. And that is such a big potential. Now, what has held us back is governance. That has been a major challenge in terms of laying the foundations of what we need to do to be able to tap into that sector in a meaningful manner. That calls for an integrated approach, because those sectors cross-pollinate, feed from, and contribute to each other's growth. So if we concentrate on one and look at it for too long, then we are ignoring so many others. For example, if we look at the port industry alone, then we miss the opportunities that other sectors that we will benefit from the port sector will provide for us. For example, the opportunities for ship repair, the opportunities for logistics, marine insurance, services to the ships, and maritime education and training for the young people to crew those vessels. So we need to look at it in an integrated manner based on the positions we are in, and governance, regulatory framework, oversight. All these come to play a major role. Because the sector has no boundaries, we need to look at it not just from our little places where we are. We need to look at it at the local level, regional level, continental level, which means also that the African Union has a big role to play in coming up with, continental frameworks and guidance and institutions.
Considering our growing trade, what are the blue employment opportunities that you can see in Africa? But that will be after this short break. Don't go away.
This is Africa. I bet you've heard a lot about it, but this is what you need to know. It's the home of the youngest and fastest growing population in the world. This, my friend, is opportunity right here. This is the future, and everyone wants Africa's attention. You need a voice that's African, young, conversational, a platform with the potential to reach millions of people across the continent with content they can relate to, such as lifestyle shows, sports and news, just the way they love it. Imagine all the people you could be talking to on News Central TV. Well, don't just think about it. Contact us for sponsorship and advert bookings. Put your brand where Africa is watching. It's News Central TV.
If you are just joining us, this is Maritime Radar, and I still have in the studio Nancy Karigithu. Before we went on that short break, I asked, considering the growing trade, what are the blue employment opportunities that you can see in Africa?
Plenty of them. And like I said, we have the advantage of having a very young population in Africa, which is very tech savvy. And we're talking of an industry that is going now into digitalization and digitization, and this sits very well with the young people. If we only are able to interest them, because they are also people, they are also a generation that in interest holds them in a position. If we are able to generate awareness amongst them that they get attracted into the sector, then there is a whole range of activities that they can do. Then the other issue is COVID has given us a new opportunity, COVID pandemic.
But before you continue,
Yes.
what you mentioned, what have we then done to ensure that we get these young people interested in the blue economy?
We just have to keep constantly talking to them. And from our part of the world, those are some of the issues that we've taken up in terms of mentorship, in terms of catching them young. Because traditionally, the maritime sector as an option for careers comes into focus of young people, maybe when they're finishing universities or when they're already in universities and they've already been colored, their minds have been colored by the traditional careers that they have grown up knowing. But if we catch them much younger, as they develop, they are aware of the blue economy and the opportunities, and we keep talking to them, then we are likely very much to see that they will be, we'll be able to catch them young.
Okay, coming home, I will look out for that inclusion from the schools. But let's go forward. The maritime industry drives 92% of Kenya's international trade. Yet its full potentials is yet to be harnessed. Why so?
Exactly the reason I've given you earlier. Lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, particularly with the policy development level. That took us a long time to understand.
So that
because
it's an African issue.
I would believe it's an African issue because we don't have the political support, the political will, as it were, to support the industry or to understand it in the bigger sense. We've looked at it from a silo mentality. This is fishing, okay? We understand it because from our traditional, domestics, that's how we've grown up knowing the local transport. But we've not seen the bigger picture of what it can develop and the structures that we therefore must deliberately and intentionally create so that then we can support the growth of the sector. And also the interlinkages, those ones are mostly lost on us, and therefore they have been lost on us for a long time. And therefore we've not been able to tap into and exploit the full potential of the industry. But I'm glad that now we're beginning to see benefits. It's a difficult conversation yet. It's still not become very eloquent and smooth, but at least we've made inroads. Particularly, baby steps, if I may say. But it's been a long journey, but I'm glad that we are where we are now.
The maritime industry is male-dominated, traditionally, but
yeah.
championed and launched women in maritime sector in East and Western Africa. How have they fared? How has this organization fared to ensure that female participation in the industry, in leadership role and positions, how have they fared generally?
Okay, the first time before we started, before we started in the industry, and I'm very grateful that International Maritime Organization, based on the program they have of women in development, helped us to come together as women in the maritime sector in the region, 26 countries, in order to form, as it were, a forum where we can talk to one another, where we can support one another, encourage one another, but most important also, mentor the young people. You realize that young people or children are shaped by the experiences they have when they're growing. And when they're thinking of careers, they identify with the people they know. So role modeling becomes very, very important. And I recall when I was growing up as a young person, I would never have imagined that a lady or a woman can be president. But now we've got those, women presidents leading nations. Salif Johnson, opens up the mind to what can happen. And therefore, this is the experience we wanted to bring to young people in our countries, in those regions. What we have is chapters in every country, a chapter of WOMESA in each of those 26 countries. We work together, come up with programs, and go to the grassroots, engaging, the ladies also who are in other, activities, including, the students. We want to catch them young, and we've seen the benefits. We were celebrating not long ago in Kenya that we have the first female to be given a Kenyan certificate of competency, because before that they were traveling abroad. And we're beginning to see that the mentorship is working, because the young people want to be, the young ladies, they can identify with the women in authority within either government, within the private sector, and they can say, yes, there is something for me in that. And therefore, it has been a very interesting journey, particularly for me, because I want to see the next generation. And when I look back and I see the young people that we've been able to, the young ladies that have been able to lift up, I think in my olden days, that was what will give me the biggest satisfaction.
I want to congratulate you for the work you've done. But before I let you go, I will ask this. If elected by July 2023 as the first African, the first woman for the position of the Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization, what are the things that we expect from you in Africa?
Now, one of the things that I have thought about very, very strongly is being able to get a strong voice from Africa. That's one of the biggest things I would want to support, not just Africa, but the developing countries, the small island states, the least developed countries, to speak with conviction, to speak with boldness, to contribute into making robust debates in the IMO on issues that matter to us, and to feel part of the conversation and part of the issues that are happening in IMO. So I would want to empower them to be able to have that voice. to be able to come for meetings prepared and not to get, to shy away from even difficult conversations within the IMO, because it is a common future. So that's one of the biggest things that, that's one of the issues that bothers me, that we are not able to contribute as much. Then the other thing that I would want to think about, or that occupies me, is a just transition into the decarbonization. How are we going to be able to ensure that we are not leaving anybody behind in this decarbonization and greening the shipping industry? And then the other one is, of course, to be able for them to, to provide the role model that it's possible, to give us confidence that we can also do it, and we are part of this global conversation, this global industry. It's as important to us as everybody else. We matter in this, not as Africa, but also as developing countries, because everybody counts in this industry.
That's a fine place to end this interview. I want to give voice to the developing countries. I want to also ensure this transition to decarbonization. These are the words of Nancy Karigithu. She is a world-renowned maritime expert and Kenya's ambassador and special envoy for shipping and blue economy. I must say, thank you for coming on the program, and congratulations for the good work you are doing in Africa. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And that's our show this week. Join me again next week as I bring you another exciting package as we explore the maritime industry in Africa. Be sure to get the latest in maritime news and industry insights right here. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. Many thanks for watching.